Welcome everybody. I'm joined here by Chipsa, Aidan and JustJob. Sadly, Teldo could not join us today as he's fell ill and can't really join. Today we'll be talking about ranked, our experiences through other games, our experiences with Supervive, hopefully giving some feedback, but also giving insight into discussions that have been had in the Supervive Discord, as JustJob has been very kind to have discussion threads with us and be able to give insight into things. So to start off introducing people, I'll be your kind of host, also discussing a bit Tom Kick today, previous league coach and player, now playing Supervive. And then Aidan, welcome.
So I used to play a lot of Dota 2. I was ranked top 3k at one point. I've done some very low level competitive PUBG. I was top ranked in quite a lot of games I've played. I've been diamond in Siege, top 500 Overwatch, and then just played a bunch of stuff really, and really enjoying Supervive.
Awesome. Chipsa, welcome as well.
I was a former professional player at Overwatch. I hit rank 1 in season 16, I think. Rank 2, season 2. A bunch of other times in top 10, etc. As for other games, not really. Just Overwatch, really. And for Supervive, I was rank 1 as well, but not anymore. Unfortunately, it's doomed. So yeah, I love the game.
Awesome, and welcome JustJob, the Theorycraft man behind ranked as we know it in the discussion right now. It's at least with the systems.
Yeah, for sure. Previous, I worked at Theorycraft for about 2.5 years now, working on matchmaking and ranked, but then also there's a slew of out of game things that I've touched. So pretty much all of it, I'd say. We have to wear many hats. But prior to this, I was at Riot Games, and so I worked on Valorant on their compet team. So I worked on Valorant's ranked and matchmaking. And then prior to that, I was working on League, more on social features for League of Legends.
Awesome. So the idea of today is not to solve the issues or find the answers, but rather give insight into a lot of ideas, how people think, our experience with the system, the thing of how we can make this better for open beta launch when those things comes later, and hopefully just bring new insight for everybody to get more perspective. So one of the things I wanted to start with was kind of our own experiences with ranked, because ranked is a different topic in any game we play, and it works differently. If it's a battle royale, if it's a MOBA, if it's a shooter in general, always different. So I wanted to quickly run by everybody with their the good, the bad, the uglies, with kind of their ranked experience. If it's want to be one game, for example, starting with you, and if you just want to be talking about Dota, that's fair. If you want to, of course, bring in PUBG, I think it's good to have multiple angles. But I want to hear from you first, your experience with ranked. Why do you play rank? Why do you think ranked is good, and how can we keep on improving it?
I'll probably say PUBG before going to Dota, because I think that's a lot. I've got a shorter opinion on that. I think the PUBG one was pretty shit, but that was mainly because I was able to queue into any rank on that game. So I could be whatever, legend or something. I queue into some copper, and it's just not fair. If it's the other way around, if I'm a copper queuing into some legend, it's I'm gonna get railed. It's just not a close thing. So I enjoy it more when it's a bit more of a closer band, because that means at least it's a lot more level. And I get that can be quite sweaty, but that's what ranked should be, in my opinion. It should be a lot more competitive sort of thing. For Dota 2, I would say I've always quite enjoyed the rank system. I've molded it in the past, but that's more the game itself, I think. The nicest thing about Dota 2 though is probably the fact that they've got an avoid list, and you're able to avoid up to 15 players or something. And just having that, I think, is a really good thing, because it lets you queue into your next game without worry of, oh, am I going to have this guy on my team again? And maybe you had an argument on the game before or something. It's it just lets you avoid all that just toxicity kind of thing. It does get removed when you get into the top tier because they've got like a drafting system now. So the way it works is like the two highest MMR players in your lobby will be like team captains, and then they will get to sort of pick their players in their team. So there's like a kind of meta system where you can either pick like the sort of best players in slot, or you can pick the lowest ranked people in the lobby, because it's like ordered left to right, lowest to highest MMR. And if you have the average lower MMR, you gain more, which is like a bit weird to me.
I want to just ask a question of one of the things, like the block list of people that you can like choose not to meet. When is like the cutoff of when you can't do it? And it's like the highest rank, or because I'm not super familiar with Dota ranks, or is it like the three highest? Like, so how?
6.5k MMR, which is like 1,000 into like 1,000 MMR higher into like Immortal. So you've got to be like the highest rank and then be like an extra like 35-ish games deep to, but like that's like wins in a row, right? To then be like in that sort of bracket.
Also, I think that's something that can be interesting to come back to. But yeah, Chipsa, like your experience with Overwatch.
I mean, the Overwatch rank system was like, it's a mixed bag. I mean, like, ironic, I didn't realize Dota 2 had an avoid list, because Overwatch has one as well, and it's like, it is one of the best features. Like, it can go into any MMR. But I think, obviously, like, that's more for like a solo queue game. But I mean, my experience with Overwatch was, I mean, they've changed the rank system like 2 or 3 times, but it was mostly fine. I mean, there's a lot of like issues with like min-maxing, which is like you play, like, if you're a high-elo player, let's say, and you duo with another high-elo player, but that high-elo plays on a Smurf that's lower rank than you can abuse that system to climb. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can abuse the system, but like the rank system that I found in Overwatch is like okay. I think when I played League, I thought League had the best rank system of any game I've played for sure. Like I felt like it felt just super reasonable. It's a bit weird when you get to games where it's like solo queue or like duo queue rather than being able to play in a full team. It becomes a lot more, like, the rank system always becomes a lot more difficult, but it's a weird one. Like, I mean, depends which Overwatch rank system you're talking about, right? Because I think there's been at least 3 different rank systems that the game's had. But I think the idea of the standard tiers is, silver, gold, blah blah blah, then top 500. I think is pretty good, but I think it's pretty standard. So, and as for BR games, I never really played any BR games in ranked, so I don't have an opinion on that.
It's interesting. I want to ask, because you said like there's multiple iterations of the Overwatch system. Like, what has been like the main things that have been changing throughout them? I'm not too familiar with the Overwatch scene, so.
Well, in the first season, it was like numbers instead of like ranks. So you go from like, like 20 to like, and I think the highest was like 91 or something like that, and I think it could go up to 100. And they changed it from like 0 to 5,000 MMR, where it's like 4,000 was GM, 3,500 Masters, etc. But it always had the same principle of like a top 500 system, where if you're the top 500 in, well, before there was Royal Queue, so it was just top 500 period, you would be on the list. Like, it didn't matter where your rating was. So at the start of the season, it might be lower, like it might be in high Masters, and then towards the end of the season, it would be like 4.4k, 4.5k, etc. But they've changed that now with the new rank system of Overwatch 2, where it's like, I mean, it's the similar sort of thing with top 500, but they added like a champion rank, which is like really, really hard to get like really high, and which I think is interesting. But like, I think the biggest change they made was like the sort of internal MMR system. Like, before, you could get to like 5, like in season 3, I think you get to 5k rank, which is like the physical highest you could get. But it made it so basically, like, I remember when I was like 4.7k, you were gaining like 9 points a win and losing like 30 points for a loss. Which is more, I think, where it should be. Like, you should never be able to. I don't think it should be possible to hit the physical highest peak rating if you implement a highest peak count. But again, like, all these systems can be manipulated and abused quite well. Well, good or bad, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as I said, I have a lot of experience with League. I think that's a very good system. I've also dabbled a bit with the Fortnite system to try to get into like how it is with Battle Royale. I think one of the very annoying things with Fortnite is that it feels like there's not really a curve where there is a point where this is where all the average people are in silver, gold, which you would expect in many other games. But it keeps on going up all the way to Elite, which most members in Fortnite, I think, is like a few seasons ago. Most most amount of players were in Elite. That was like the highest average, and that is compared to all the games kind of top 1% rank wise, but most players are in there, so it felt kind of easy to get up. So I would like to ask you, just Job, working on League of Valorant, as you said, how has it been going from those kind of games into working on a rank system for Battle Royale and trying to build on a philosophy to make ranked a system that people want to grind to be able to play and play and play, and it doesn't feel like unfair, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's very different from like how we approach like making a rank system for a BR versus for a 1v1, or like I say 1v1 as one team versus one team game, because there's like a few different things. Like first, it's like the matchmaking. I think like one of our patches, so the 8-day playtest, we had a bit looser matchmaking, and I think the rank system felt really easily climbable because our matchmaking was a little bit looser. And that's going to happen because like it's just harder to find 40 players versus it is in like League or Valorant to find 10 players, you know, that are like can make a good match. So one, like your matchmaking, your matches are always going to have a bit wider skill from the best team to the worst team, as well as I think you can. So in this like ideal world where no one abuses the system, you can think about yeah, exactly. You can think about like in a BR, it makes sense that like wins are what matters, right? It's like, okay, you just get like some point payout for your placement, and then everyone's happy, and then it's like easily like you can see that it's zero sum, so it's like the amount you get for first is how much you lose for 10th, you know. But like that is not necessarily the case, and I think about I think like it's always a redistribution because of like a single match where, okay, a 1 team versus one team, it's like, okay, these players that are winning are probably going to gain, these players over here that are losing are probably going to lose, and if the gains relatively equal the losses, then like there's not like an overall inflation to the system, and so you can say like, oh, these players are going up, these players are going down. It's not that simple because it's not a close population, but in BR it's harder to see that because like you don't know how much other players are getting. You don't know, like once you're out, like if you get 6th place, you don't know what the other teams received, and so you just see your own individual experience, and that's like a bit harder to like I think through. And so I like this is a very long-winded answer, but really
Yeah.
it comes down to I think they are very different systems and require I think different designs on how you can make a rank system that's compelling.
Yeah, because I think one of the interesting things with Battle Royales is that, from what I've heard from other people, is that a lot of people feel like the Battle Royale scene is very grindy. Like, to get to the top ranked is not necessarily about the skill. People have praised the League system here. Aidan talked a little about the Dota system, because it's like, of course, a different way to match it. But I think you guys are in a position where you can get a lot of feedback from the other games to be able to build a system that people feel good about grinding, as people don't have that passion for many other Battle Royales. How has the been like working behind the scenes now on the feedback? Because a lot of people talked about, okay, the top rank echelon is kind of just whoever plays the most games are on the top rank. Have you guys dabbled in how to look away from that, or is it more so, is it call it a player base issue, we don't have enough people to kind of test out the system, or how is it looking from behind the scenes for you guys?
I think it's looking good. I'm happy we're running these experiments, especially like in the phase that we are, because I think ranked is it's a system that a lot of players expect in a competitive game now. And so I remember even seeing feedback when we were like probably like early play test, like not early, but maybe like 2023 going into this year, where people are like, if there's not a rank system, I don't think I can play this game. And it's just like funny to me when I think about, like, I get it when I was working on Valorant that like, yes, you have to ship a competitive tac shooter with a rank system. I get it, you know. With our game, I think we see the sentiment already where the King Nidhogg post, which I don't know if you guys have read, which is like last playtest, the top lobbies were like the same 10 teams, and so it felt very repetitive and like unfun, because like if you're not the top 3 teams, those top 3 teams are probably going to win most of those matches. So when you come into it being like a very good player, you don't get to actually feel like a good player because you're just getting stomped by players that are slightly better. So I think that's like getting that type of feedback is nice early. I was going somewhere with that, and now I'm forgetting. But like with I think like, I guess for my expectation is like players want to experiment, and like his post was kind of saying like we can't experiment because like these lobbies are too sweaty, and I think our game like caters a lot to people experimenting. And like right now, like there's no meta established. Well, I guess a meta is forming, but like there's no like established way to play the game, and so being too competitive too fast can hurt. And I think I've seen a lot of feedback, and that's like one of those things that like is very nuanced, and you don't necessarily expect as you're designing like the rank system or like, oh, when I'm making matchmaking, it's like having tighter and more competitive matches has to be better, right? And sometimes that's not the case, where that like disincentivizes experimentation. And so how do we like add? Now it becomes a question of like, okay, well, how do we cater to those needs? So on one hand, it's like I think rank can hurt our game with where it's at, with like how the meta is forming, but also I think it's good that we're getting this feedback now so that we can like design around it and think about those things. So I think the feedback's been great. Like I'm happy we're doing these experiments now, because I think we'd get a lot more flack like if we have a release game and we're trying to like redo the rank system. And I know a lot of games do that. Like I remember Valorant, the rank system we shipped, we changed in like the very first season. And so I think a lot of games kind of iterate. I've seen Apex go through 9 iterations of rank systems, right? So like they're always experimenting, which I think is good. It's like gives you this disjoint identity, because I think something that League suffered from too is like people want to be able to say like, oh, I'm excited about this game, I'm talking to my friends about this game. I describe myself as a rank, right? It's like I'm a this type of player. So like, and I think with League is always like, I got to this rank in this season. So it's not just like I'm a platinum player. It's I'm a platinum in this season, because like if you know enough and you're in the scene enough, you know that there's like nuanced differences where like I think I was plat in silver in season 4, and that means something very different than like plat now, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very interesting you touched on, you know, the differences of being in a playtest environment, like changing all stuff. Maybe it's not good to have ranked on, maybe it's good to like test it here and there. I would like to check with you, Chipsa, in form of looking ahead for our feeling as players when we get to the release, because right now there's a lot of discussions where we're held back by, yeah, we can't do this because we have a small player base, like we're testing the game still. So I'd love to hear from you. How do you feel, or how would you be happy as a player, given that we have enough players, like the player base is not a problem or anything? How does ranked look for you? Like what can you queue up for ranked, like modes? How does it feel without the restrictions of having enough players?
Well, I mean, like you said, I think obviously with the current situation, ranked just feels very strange because the lobbies are just sort of like, often it's just like, you know, it's 2 or 3 teams. So once you kill those teams, you kind of just win, and you're like snowballing off the lower tier team. So I think it's going to be so weird when the lobbies feel more stacked. I think there's obviously a debate between like solo queue versus teams and stuff like that. I don't know really, like. It's a really complicated one, because I feel like ranked in BRs is so difficult to sort of to pin down, because there's always this like, for me, like there's a question between like how much you incentivize kills versus how much you incentivize placement, right? Because if you incentivize placement too hard, the lobbies just get to the point where everyone's just hiding 24/7. Like I remember watching like this PUBG tournament one time where like the circle was in the water, and in PUBG, I don't know if it's still the case at the time, like you just couldn't get shot when you're in the water, right? So there was literally like 40 people just in the water, just couldn't die. And I think that that's something you want to get away from. Then at the same time, you don't want it to just be running people down and killing, and you don't give a shit where your placement is. So I think the current rank system right now, I do think is like pretty good. I think we can climb infinitely now because of, like you said, the player base is so small that, you know, oftentimes like it's just like us versus Lima's team in the lobby, and you know, we're just sort of killing everyone else, and then we meet in the final two and then fight. So I really don't know is the honest answer. I think that the system right now is good enough. I think the bonus system is something I'm a bit sort of dubious on. Like specifically, like I like the bonus system when you're not in the legend rank. I think the bonus system when you're in the legend rank, I don't know, like there's games where I play, like me and Hot Biscuit, for instance, were like neck and neck, right? And then I played Void, and then he's still playing Shrike, and then all of a sudden he just overtook me 30 points because of whatever reason the bonus system is. And I think, I think that's quite a minor point. I think at higher elos, the bonus system shouldn't be there. I think it's mostly, I gather it's like an anti-smurf detection thing, but I mean, we're talking about this before the podcast, but I don't know, like the things behind it. Like we've thought about like, oh, like how many knocks, like revives, etc.
I thought I killed bonus at legend because I agree
No.
with you where it's like, okay, then I wrote some
Yeah,
code to kill it. I just must
absolutely
have not turned it on. Like I need to turn that on because
it
like
still exists. Like there's games where like he gets 20 bonus, I get 0. And it's like, I'm fucked, mate. Like we have the same, like your team kills are the same, your placement's the same, and like some games he just gets 20 points bonus. So yeah, I mean, I always assumed that it would be turned off at legend because I think that is what it, like to me at least, that's what I thought it would be. But
that's the intention. I must
Okay,
have
good,
not
good.
turned something on that I should have turned on. Because like I got that, like I think when we first did the ticketing system, people were like, why is there a bonus at legend? It doesn't make sense. I was like, yeah, it doesn't really make sense because at that point, use the kills and placement, and that's what should rule. We shouldn't be doing any weird magical invisible hand moving you around type stuff
agreed.
like bonus will do otherwise.
Yeah, that's fair. So another thing I wanted to try to push you guys players a little bit on. I got some questions from outside in form of the ideal ways to queue into the modes and different ways to play it. Some players talked about, okay, in League you have one rank, for example, for solo queue, and then you have the flex rank. And people kind of feel like flex rank is just a joke. Like nobody really cares about the flex rank. You're queuing as a team, nobody really cares. For you, Aidan, do you feel like you would feel like it's interesting to push for different modes? Say you're playing, you can queue as solo, but you queue into a squad and that's their own rank. And you queue into duo mode, but it's a duo mode, that's their own rank. Would you, Aidan, want more ranks and different modes in an ideal world where we have enough players, of course? Or would you want less ranks combined for one person?
So the old iteration of Dota used to have 2 different types of ranks. You had like your team at MMR, right, and then you had like your solo queue MMR, and no one ever gives a fuck about like the team one, right? Because it ends up just being like they all pick the solo queue MMR because that's like this is the actual like good player sort of thing. Like there's no chance of you getting carried and stuff. I think the second you start splitting up the MMR bans and having like separate ones, people are only going to care about like the main one, and that's going to be decided by whatever the community like deems is the main one. So I guess like I don't mind the idea of having separate MMRs because like it makes you feel good, right? When like you play on like different brackets and stuff, and then that you've got your own one as maybe like not less competitive, but like less competitive compared to like what the majority of people are focusing on. So it like lets you kind of like play your own style of the game more, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Chipsa, what do you think of that, the different modes ideas and ranked for it?
Well, I've had quite a few discussions in the Discord about like the principle between like team ranked and solo queue. I think in games like League, and I assume Dota is the same. I haven't played it, and Overwatch as well. But League is probably the best example of solo queue is really all that matters because the game really doesn't require like an immense amount of communication to function well. Like you just sort of just play in your lanes, like the whole laning phase. You know, you're not isolated. You know, you need to call your jungler, oh, gank me top, like you idiot, etc., etc. But for the most part, it's like you're on an island in those games, so you don't need a massive amount of communication. Whereas a game like Supervive, you need such a ridiculous amount of communication to compete Like, you know, your team's not rotating the same way. You don't know where you're dropping. Like all of these different things. You're taking fights separately. So I'm under the assumption, like, at least I don't think a solo queue rank will function like it does in League in terms of, I don't think it will ever be the main mode that people take truly seriously. I think it would just be, whether it's like a team rank or it's a flex rank. Like, I think the idea of like having a team, like, let's say we have these same 4 players and then the rank system isn't based on players, it's based on teams, could be interesting. Or whether it's just the way it is now, or it's a sort of flex rank, I think is just inherently better. I do think there should be some sort of solo queue rank in the game. Like if you just want to play the game and you want to feel like you can play without needing like a bunch of people to play, and you only get matched with the solos, etc. I think that's fine to have. Like whether or not there's a player base issue there as well, or you don't want to split the player base too much. I guess that depends on how many players the game has. But I agree with what Aidan said. Like there's only going to be one game mode where the top players play, and it's, I think to me it's just going to be the flex / team rank. I don't think like top players are really ever going to play solo queue in this game, personally.
So do you think then? Oh yeah, sure, you go for it.
I have a question, I guess. So I was one of the pieces of feedback I read that I like really resonated with, which was like, it was like the call out for like, can we have solo queue in Supervive? And it was coming from a League player, and kind of like what you were saying, Chipsa. I think League caters very well to like, oh, I want to practice my skills. Like, I just got done with work. I want to come home. I want to like play a few games. I don't want to like interact with people that much, and I don't want to like talk. I just want to like kind of like zone out and like grind a few games. And I think solo queue works really well for that, especially like in a game like League, where like depending on your skill level, the first like X minutes of the game are pretty solo, unless like you play bot lane where it's like duo, but still it's like a limited number of people you have to communicate with. And I think just like grinding out those skills is like something that's really compelling. And like I think about this like with physical sports a lot, where it's like, oh, I'm going in and like shooting around like on a basketball court, right? You're like, I'm practicing something. And I think that solo queue can be more practice for then when you're like, oh, now I'm gonna play with my buddies, or just even like skill diff with your friends. It's like, I don't have to worry about getting a group that like is on the same page and communicates well. I'm just gonna like pop into solo queue. And I think it's hard for me. Like, I think that need also exists in Supervive, where people will want that. I think the communication burden is much higher, as you were saying, especially at like the top end games. But also there isn't this like innately solo experience of like laning phase in Supervive at all, right? So like what I think about is like, does it cater well to a solo queue audience? I do like empathize with the people that are like, I just don't want to find, like, I don't have the friends that are around the same skill level that like I want to queue with. And so I think there's like, we need to solve something in that space. It's just the call out that I think League does a very good job. Like the game caters well to that audience. I think that's kind of why that solo queue is the one true skill identity took over, and like the history of how their rank systems happened and the whole flex queue blow up and stuff like that means that solo queue is like the one true ranked identity. I guess like the question there is like, do you guys agree with that sentiment? Do you think Supervive, like, do you think solo queue could exist in Supervive? Like, granted, with like, we need the player base and stuff of that nature.
I think it can absolutely exist in Supervive. I just think, at least from the perspective of someone who wants to play at the very top, I just don't think, let's say you have the top 100 players in the game. I don't think many, like most of those players will be in teams, will have functional teams. I don't think that most high-end players will play solo queue, at least not like seriously. Like maybe you want to learn a new champion, a new hero comes out, you want to play Stalker, whatever, never played it before, then you're going to pop in solo queue and play it. I think that I just don't know how you solve the communication issue in this sort of game. Like it just has there's so many moving parts that you need to be on the same page for, that I find it very difficult to bridge that gap in a solo queue environment. So I don't know, honestly. And I just like to say one more thing. I really would like a system, like, I don't know if you remember in League, I don't know if they still do it, like this Clash thing, where there's like a tournament system, right? Like in-game tournament, you don't have to do anything else. Like I think that would be really cool in a game like this. I don't know how you'd implement it, but
I think solo solo also like makes me think of like it'd be cool if you could even like I'm gonna queue into a tournament solo, and then that's like to get your solo itch. Now that doesn't like meet the player need that I was just describing before, where people just like kind of want to turn their social brain off and just like grind some games. But I think that would be interesting because then you could be like, yeah, I was the best player because like amongst all these different teams that it rotated me between, I had the most points. You know, I think that would be a cool thing. I also like think tournaments, and like we can take inspiration from like formats of like other BRs where it's like it's a multi-game type thing, and then you get points based off how your team's doing, and then yeah, I agree. I think a tournament system would be sweet. It's a lot of work to do, but yeah.
One day
it
will fit in one day, surely. But I think one thing that might be important is that we also sit in a position where we're biased to the point of we're always looking and having kind of a team for the playtest. So every time we are playing the game, we're always in the pre-made culture of playing versus other pre-made teams in the higher end lobbies. I think one of the things that can be important for thinking about getting the player base up is that not everybody will have a force squad like available to be able to play that kind of a mode. See, okay, they're waiting for a buddy to come home from work, and maybe somebody just finished school early, then want to just play a few Sudoku games. I think it's important to have that kind of mode because the importance and it's so hard to always have a full squad available. So Sudoku might just be most available because I think most players will not have a full team all the time, and that will also be kind of a way to discover people. Like if you like, there's always a chance that somebody will have mic and somebody will not have mic, but also then being a way to meet those people and bring them into squad. Like, yo, maybe you should play squad instead, I really enjoy playing with you, to be able to build the community into squad.
I think Fortnite, just for what it's worth, does like a really good job of like they just have a solo, duo, trio squad. So it's like I don't care how many players are online. However many players online, we have a queue for us, you know. And so I just we have lots and lots of players. It'd be wonderful to be able to do something like that because then we kind of meet everybody's needs. Now, like there's different balance concerns of different like player numbers, and you already see that in the duos TTK versus like the squads TTK, and just like what happens, but it'd be nice if we could like meet like no matter how many players you have. Solo would be interesting. What do you guys think of like a pure like size 1 team game mode in our game where it's like 40 teams
like
of
solos?
Actual solos, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would like defeat so many of like the core mechanics in the game. It would just be like what's the wisp mechanic if you're solo, right? Like is it just going to be like Realm Royale where you turn into a chicken and you can run around and after 10 seconds you revive? And I empathize with people who want to play solo. I just think it's something actually I want to ask you, and I'm not sure if this is actually in the game, but like if you queue solo, does the game prioritize you that everyone else in the game is solo as well? Like it tries to put you with other solos and lesser size squads?
Not yet. The intention is yes.
Because I think that is also something that, like, let's say you don't even bother with the solo mode, you just have the one ranked mode, and then like, you know, let's say you'd like let's like discount like legend, right? Like because that's a minority of players. You know, just your average gold player. You queue as a gold player, then you know of the 40 players, like 30 of them are solo, right? Let's say. So that way you have a more balanced experience because everyone's playing solo, rather than having to have its own mode. And then sort of as you progress through the ranks, you know, you might end up meeting a friend you want to play with, then form a team, etc. As you get higher and higher. I think that's probably one of the other ways you can do it. Like then you don't need to have its own separate game mode, and you can just have it sort of a way of the matchmaking balancing you against squads, because that's the same thing they used to do in Overwatch, right? When you could queue as 6 back in the day, it would pretty much, I say pretty much, like, most of the time it would try to match if you were queued to 6 to match you against another queue of 6, right? And if you're a group of 4, it would put you against another group of 4 and 2, etc. I think that's obviously another way that you can sort of bridge the gap between solo and team play without needing to separate the player base.
On the back of that, I think they've got in Dota, which I don't know if it could work in Supervive because the amount of players, like obviously it's 40 compared to 10. But basically, you have like an option in your settings to strict solo queue matchmaking. So you could opt into like joining like the party queue if you were a solo queue, or you could say to yourself, okay, I only want to like go into a solo queue. This does just get removed when you get past the 6.5k MMR mark because it's just like they draft their teammates. Like you could legit go in with your buddy. And then if the team captain doesn't pick you and your friend, you're playing against your friend that game. which is
I'm
it's
running it down,
interesting.
boys.
I do think one of like my philosophies with like matchmaking is like I want to give players as much agency as we can. Because like I think about intention a lot of like if I queue with this crew or if I queue ranked versus unranked, like what is your intention? And like how do we capture more and more attention? Like one of the things that we're probably gonna put online here soon is like language preference. Like it's especially a problem like for our European players where it's like, okay, you probably want to speak your native language. Can we match you with people that also want to speak that language? You know, and so like intention is like I think a powerful thing to capture. Like, oh, would you rather play at lower late like for I guess this is more important in Valorant, like lower latency, or would you rather have faster queue times? You know, and I like almost think about this as like, can we just have like a would you rather like a looser match or a tighter match? Like is like I guess looser and lower queue time or tighter and higher queue time is like something that helps capture some of that intent, because I think the problem of kind of making this bespoke solution for everyone is that then you get people that just don't like, people that love it and people that hate it. And so if we can give more, like capture more intention of each player as they go into matchmaking and then try to our best to make good matches for them, I think that's like the ideal world.
Do you guys have also have you thought about in an ideal world where player base is not a problem, where you can queue for multiple modes at the same time? So say for example, if trio exists in the future, like being able to queue for squad, trio and duo, and whatever like people queue the most for, you can choose to queue for only squad and duo, or you can choose only duo, trio, and then kind of match together quickly compared to which mode you would prefer into.
I haven't really thought about that. Mostly because I don't think we've locked down like what our mode offering is going to be. But like I guess it makes sense as like if you're a party of two, where it's like we can queue duos and squads and see which one pops first because we don't necessarily care. That's interesting. But it's very doable and viable. It's just haven't really thought much about it.
That's fair. Aidan, one thing I wanted to go through you again to kind of catch back onto the list of the one you mentioned with block list, or people that you don't want to be playing with, to introduce it and how it kind of works. Into Supervive, do you think that it is mostly ideal to just kind of have a list where you can have this max? I think you said it was max 10 people you could have on the list, or
It was something like 15-ish, but
yeah.
the way it worked as well is, so you earn like in-game currency just playing games, right? You get this like little gold thing, and you can actually pay to extend the list, right? So you can have more people on your void list, and it's also like a pound or something, right, to get Dota Plus, and it's just like a part of that package, right? So I guess it's like kind of like pay to win, I guess, because you can just avoid anyone that you think is like questionable. So
Is
best
it
word.
actually unlimited? You can like keep on buying, like extend the list?
I don't know, but I've never reached my limit, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? But I can't use it anymore, sadly.
So do you think that's something that would be good to have into Supervive? As you said, like the cap, like it's removed in the higher tier of lobbies. Like say for example, if you reach master, then that list kind of disappears. But for the lower end people, like being able to, the people that kind of maybe just run down the game, or like just really toxic on mic or whatever, to be able to have that kind of list.
Yeah, I think it also just like removes. I can imagine some people probably have like they get into a game, they've just had like a really horrible experience, and then they just don't want to deal with that particular person again. But that just removes that whole like element. It's like that person is not going to be in my next game, and if they are, I'll be playing against them, right? And maybe I won't have to like deal with them on the mic or anything. So I think it's just like a really like healthy system. I think like I wouldn't say you need to have like infinite avoids though, because I can imagine that gets problematic. But like even if it's just like 10 or 15, the purpose of it is not to like keep the person off your thing forever. It's just it removes them from the rest of that day, and like the odds of you queuing into them again are like not that high realistically.
Another thing I want to run by you players first. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but League of Legends has an honor system, and the honor system works on after a game you can kind of give people an award, like if you felt like it was a good teammate, like friendly to play with, and then you can get higher honor level for how good you are. How would you guys feel about a form of an honor system to be able to promote being positive, where toxic people get punished in form of needing to play certain modes, so like going to normal mode before going into ranked, and then trying to incentivize being friendly, especially when mic is going to be like a super important thing, like talking to each other and making sure that you're actually like a good human being to the other people that you meet.
There's a thing in Dota as well, where it's like a behavior score system, basically the same as that. And what they do is, if your behavior score is not high enough because you keep getting reported, like for being like toxic or whatever, they actually remove your privileges to like speak, right? So it's like you can't talk on the mic anymore, or they'll make it so if you're that bad, you can't even ping your teammates' abilities or like items. Like you can't even like ping at some point. It gets like quite. It's like a mental reset. It's like, okay, I can't play the game anymore because I've been like an asshole, right? So like I've seen it reform people.
I think in these sorts of systems, you have to be careful that they don't get abused. Like I think obviously like reporting people and then them getting like like chat banned or whatever, I think is good. I think positive what I'm looking for, like positive incentives, I think is good as well, like an honor system. As long as it doesn't give you any like faster Q times or anything, it's just like, okay, like maybe you get like an emote or you get like something like that, like some sort of cosmetic reward to like in game you can see like, oh, he is on level 4 extra. I don't think it can cause any harm.
Yeah, because
I think that
continue, sir.
Like as for the disincentivized system, I think it's just more like be tied to the report system rather than like I guess that's what it would be. Like, it wouldn't be any like
because
this guy.
Because the second part of this is that a lot of people in League has complained that you don't really feel rewarded for being honorable. Like there is no like the reward system has been really bad. Like they have the system, you can get rewards, but the rewards kind of suck. So the second part of this kind of question is more so, how would you feel rewarded for being a positive person to be able to actually want to use the system and not be a dickhead, basically?
I mean, I don't know, because the issue is if you tie like a skin behind it, it's a really cool skin, then people are just going to abuse the system, right? That's the problem. Like, it's like the problem is people are fundamentally assholes, right? So like they're going to be positive in a way that they're not doing it to be positive; they're doing it to get the reward. So it's like it's such a difficult like sort of tightrope to balance, because you want to incentivize, you don't want to just like. You want to incentivize people to be positive, right? And you want to disincentivize people to be negative. You don't want to get it to the point where like, oh, guys, like if you upvote me, I'll PayPal you five quid after this game, etc.
We're gonna turn into YouTube sign-offs of like and subscribe me at the end of every game.
Yeah, because
20% of my teammates are not subscribed.
Yeah, because like there is a lot of system that can easily be abused, but how is there like if there exists somewhere to be able to promote those kind of things without making it an abusable system? Like in most cases there will always be a system to be abused, but like trying to find the middle ground of being able to promote it in a proper way. I don't know if you guys like at Theorycraft have discussed those kind of things, thinking about, since you guys have mic and the communication is a really core part of the game.
Yeah, I think you're kind of calling out that honor systems are hard because, like, at the end of the day, gamers are going to game, regardless of the system. And so, if you get any sort of incentive for doing it, it's like people like let's say even like, oh, maybe we don't give you cosmetics because like there's just like there's specific players that are like, I'm a collectible player and I want everything. And so when they see these like honor rewards, they're like, I'm going to do whatever I can to get this. And like I think I didn't keep track because like I stopped playing League probably in some of the more recent systems, and I think they did like an honor overhaul. But like when they first released it, it was like everyone, you could like party up with a friend and be like, okay, we'll just honor each other at the end of every or whatever, and then you can like kind of get your honor up, which is so you need to create like the right incentive structure, which is difficult, where it feels like not in your face, and it's like only when you have these like really like great experiences that you want to like hit that button. and then that just turns into people like advertising for themselves, which is hard if there's an incentive they want, like if there's like a leaderboard or if like an in-game cosmetic. So we're talking about behavior a lot because luckily thus far we've had a wonderful playtest community. But I can imagine like there's so many abuse cases in our game, just like holding people hostage after like if you're like the last one alive, just like hiding in a bush and spamming emotes at like the 3 people that are dead on your team. Like there's like so many abuse things you can do. You can like hook your ally or like push your allies off ledges with like freeze wall. There's so many like things you can do to kind of like abuse the like just the mechanics of the game in a way that's like bad for your teammates. We will definitely need to be addressing some of these, and like I think like so far we're already experimenting with some cool like AI voice like toxicity detection stuff. We'll do similar things with chat, but because we have voice, less people use chat. And like the idea is like to try to get like, hey, if as soon as someone's being like toxic in voice, can we just like voice ban them and just like help like essentially remove that toxic experience from other players? And that's kind of the ideal. I think toxicity oftentimes crops up because of like a misalignment of what you want to do or like some sort of conflict. And I think certain games cater more to this like conflict where there's like multiple choices. I think Supervive, I'd like to think, because it's so dependent that you're all walking around together. Obviously, objectives will be something that's like people will conflict and fight over. So we have to figure out. The more you can like nonverbal comms, I think goes a long way to help solving some toxicity. I think there's like the punishment systems that you can just like ban people from voice or whatever. So it's something we're thinking about. It's not something we've invested like super deeply into yet, just because we've had a wonderful community so far, and because like it's an alpha, so that we're like closed alpha. So we like, if you're bad, we're just gonna ban you. So sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. We're getting close to a good end here. I would also want to go through your Chipsa and Aiden if you guys have anything specific that we haven't talked through on the ranked theme kind of thing that you would like to ask JustJob in form of system or ideas around it or anything that you think can be important to talk about. And also if you've seen any interesting questions in chat that can be cool to take up before we end today.
Well, one question's more of like a personal question, I guess. Is like, are you planning on? I assume at some point you're planning on separating EU and NA leaderboards. When? I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to try hard in NA anymore, please.
Oh
no.
Yes, we will eventually. I like to have lots of different views into leaderboards and not just a global single leaderboard. But I don't know what the win aspect is when it becomes the highest priority thing for someone on my team to be doing. So I'd like to separate it out. I hear, and I think the feedback is very real. I do think like the forever inflationary piece of ranked right now is a little like, I think the easy solve for like the ranked piece is like having a cost that just keeps scaling up. I think a lot of other BRs have done that in like a ticketing type system where it's like every 500 RP you get in Legend, it's like your cost just goes up slightly. So like at least there's like this cap where it's like not just like a chase to the top. Because there's other like the inflation problem is kind of weird because like the very best when we made those tighter lobbies, was it your crew, Aiden, that like it was like the Mythy, someone went like
we had millions of. You know about the hype stuff?
No, I was thinking there was like a crew that even when we got like those really tight lobbies, they won like they got first like 8 games in a row.
We won like 13 games in a row.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was your crew. It's like you made the
That's why.
Unless we just roll over like it.
Which like there will always be a best squad on a server. So how do you like make sure that it's the system's still not inflationary even for that team, because like they're always going to be like supposed to be gaining. Eventually like their expectations are going to get higher and higher, and so like
Yeah.
you keep climbing and the cost keeps going up.
I mean, it's an issue of like you don't want to get it to the point where like pretty much no matter what you do, unless you have a perfect game, you're not going to gain rank. Because it's like, oh, fuck, I'm just not going to queue. I'm just going to go to Smurf or something like that. At the same time, like, I mean, I think, like I said, like way earlier, I think when you get lobbies where it's not just 2 or 3 good teams and the rest are like, you know, good players but like not the same level, I think that then you probably look at the rank system totally differently. So I think the player base issue, like I really do think a lot of the people who complain about the rank system as a matchmaking, like, just need to understand they just don't have enough players to properly balance the game. Like, most people don't play like we play 12 hours every day. Like we literally get every last second out of every single test that we can because we're no life degenerates. But like, you know, in an ideal world, like that's not going to be the way it is. Like there's going to be people, like there's going to be more people and there's going to be more competition, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the interesting thing you touched on there is, have you guys thought about Smurfing? Because I heard Chipsa mention that, and I think that's like a hot topic differently from game to game. I don't know if you guys have a stance on Smurfing or if you have discussed it or you can talk about it, but if you have an idea on how you think about Smurfing in this game, like being a top player and just wanting to play with your friends, or if it's something you're against.
I think a lot of times Smurfing is an incentives problem where typically the best thing to do for a player is to go play on a Smurf. And I'd like to avoid those situations, or at least make it so it's not necessarily like, I would like everyone to be able to play on their main account and get the experience they want. Obviously, like, I don't think that's completely possible. I can't, like, we can't meet every single like use case, because then there's like other competitive integrity things that we can't, like the whole like rank disparity of like, oh, I am legend ranked, I want to play with like a gold player. Eventually we'll probably have to restrict or figure out some way where either it's going to be hugely disadvantaged to play with that gold player because they're not as good as everybody else, or just restrict it in general. But that like then encourages that legend player to go like hop on a Smurf, you know? So I think it's always an incentives issue, in my opinion. I'd like us to avoid populations of Smurfs just because like I think it gets when there are more reasons to make a Smurf, I think people trust your matchmaking less, because there's actually like a Valorant example I will give is like Valorant, there is Smurfing. Valorant tries to avoid Smurfing, but I think in the middle elo section, like around like gold, so like high silver, low gold, people complain a lot about the rank system and just like, oh, Smurfs ruin this area of MMR. And though they probably do affect it, I think it's actually there are two types of gamers that kind of like end in that level. There's like the zoomers and the boomers, and like the boomers are sitting there thinking about like, how can I best like create, like manipulate the map to like, and use my abilities but not have to shoot people to like win this round. And then the zoomers are just like running around all these corners and just like popping people in the head, right? They both end up in the same area of ranked, because like pushing above that, you need a little bit of like, you need both, you know?
Yeah.
But that like ends up like being very different players that then conflict because like they want to play the game very differently. And so then people are like, well, clearly that person's a Smurf because they just pop around corners and shoot me in the head. And like, why do they have that good of aiming? And it's typically because like they don't know how to win rounds, even though they can like kill people, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a very like fair thing. Like also people, of course, over complaining what is actually an Smurf. Like, are they actually more than we think it is? But yeah, also I think incentivizing. One of the things I've heard and like I've thought about myself often is a scenario where you are a high rank and that kind of skews over to the normal games. So even if I am to want to play with, say, my friends who are bronze, then if I am to queue into normal, then my MMR will still be high, even if it's just a normal game, and then you'll end up against other players where maybe I just want to play first time a new hunter. Like I don't want to sit and try hard, but yeah, I want to play some new stuff. But then I feel incentivized to try a lot harder because I'm meeting really good players. But then again, I just want to have fun with my friends. So then it feels like, okay, then I'm more over to just wanting another account so they don't get the burden of meeting those high players and just getting popped kind of thing.
I think to kind of like solve that, like one, I think hero-based or hunter-based MMR is like one to be like, oh, you can feel free to experiment because like there will be some like you'll be matched with lesser opponents if you've proved like you're not that good at that hunter or it's not your main or whatever. I think sometimes those systems are very easily abusable. We've seen like in other games, but that's kind of like capturing the intention I was saying earlier is like the hunter you're playing kind of also says your intention of like, are you tryharding? You're probably gonna play your main if you're tryharding. So like, yeah, I think that goes into the should be considered in matchmaking. I think something else, and one of the reasons like right now, you guys are probably familiar that if you queue into unranked, you'll still get ranked players in your game. And that's like a player base issue. I would like to move closer. Like I would love to be able to separate that out just because I think if I'm playing ranked, it's a very different intention than if I'm playing unranked, you know? And then also we can do different things with MMR where it's like unranked MMR is very different system than like ranked MMR where unranked like can move very quick because like me on a Friday night after like drinking a little bit, like shooting the shit with my friends, like playing games, like it's a very different experience than like if I like queued like unranked on another time, you know? It's like, and so I'd like my MMR to like quickly reflect that in an unranked queue because like you're just coming in with such different intentions because who knows? And then like I think that also like helps with smurfing if like your MMR adjusts like super quick because like, oh well, we're gonna quickly like get our own little like subsection MMR. People reference StarCraft a lot, where it's like, oh, we had our squad MMR and that was like such like a good thing. Well, like what if you go play like 5 games with the same squad and like your MMR becomes like this is where you guys are playing at, you know? Can we adjust it that quick? And the answer is maybe. We haven't tried it yet, but like in my mind, it's like it should be possible. So it'd be cool to kind of do those things with unranked. I think that also goes back to like I feel bad because I actually saw him in the chat. The Nidhogg comment about like his post. Adding some variety to your matchmaking experience is good. I think being able to queue unranked and be like get a different experience is really important because like if you're just ranked and it's like super sweaty and you're just like screw this, I'm out. We'd rather you have a alternative to go play than like stop playing, you know? That's sucks. And so being able to adjust quickly in like an unranked experience I think is important, and just to experiment. I think everyone needs a place to experiment.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's very good. I appreciate everybody here like taking the time to answer questions, ask questions, give some discussions, and give different opinions. Also, like special thank you, JustJob, for actually coming and answering questions that we probably won't get as many times. Being able to talk with you guys from Theorycraft and also can have these kind of discussions is very good for the community. We really appreciate that. Thank you also Aidan and Chipsa for joining. Any last words you want to say before we jump out for today?
Nerf Oathbreaker, please.
Sorry, what?
Nerf Oathbreaker now.
I'll deliver that feedback.
Thank you.
Buff Kingpin.
Oh.
I think we got all the important notes in there.
Yeah, I'll send those to the right people.
Yeah. Oh,
Thanks for having me. This was awesome. I'm always happy to chat with the community. I really want I think an important thing is oftentimes matchmaking ranked is such a black box system. I want to really open that up as a discussion. I've gotten so much good feedback and thinking points just by starting to talk with people. So I encourage everyone to let's keep talking about it. I want to make the system better. So
thank you very much then, and I hope everybody else has a lovely rest of the day. I'll catch you guys on the Supervive servers next time it's open, and then I'll see you guys around. Bye.
All right. See ya.